My good colleagues, I cannot put myself between you and food or coffee, but I would like to invite you to join us, please, and have a seat. I would like to take also the opportunity to invite my panelists to be seated, and all our witnesses and champions to sit on the front, as they will be invited to share with us remarks. As they say in good English, please be seated. S'il vous plaît. Okay. Thank you. I had prepared remarks, but when it comes to the RNI, I don't need remarks. And I just wanted to share with you a story of success in such a short time. And they always say that we are bad at the UN for taking credit. On this one, we are going to take credit. And why? Because the Rising Nation Initiative came from the commitment of a group of countries in the Pacific, the atoll countries of the Pacific, the Tuvalu, the Kiribati, the Marshall Islands, three member states of the United Nations on the forefront of the front line of the climate crisis. And they came together, and I'm saying here, right after the first declaration of the Pacific, to say, how can we take our priorities, our challenges, our nightmares, and our anxiety beyond our neighborhood? How we can make the world understand what we're going through, and how we can build a global response. They came together with a set of goals. One, that as member states, as nations, they will not, and they cannot entertain the idea of losing their identity, their sovereignty, and their statehood to the climate crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, they succeeded. The International Court of Justice, the advisory opinion, stated very clearly and unequivocally that the loss of one aspect of statehood does not mean the loss of your sovereignty and of your identity. And as such, I am very pleased to be one of the first to say and to declare that in the context of the members of the United Nations, statehood and sovereignty is permanent and enduring. Number two, where the RNI and the champions have succeeded, and these were very much supported by a solid group of countries across region, whether it's Germany, it's Korea, it's Italy, it's Denmark, Malta, France, and many others. They were key in ensuring that the heritage and the identity of the people of these atoll nations are not only safeguarded, but celebrated. And on this, Minister Maina of Tuvalu just last week presented to the UNESCO leadership the application of the entire nation, not a site, not La Baguette, not a music, but the entire country. It's 9 atolls, tangible and intangible, to be recognized as UNESCO, as Universal World Heritage. This is a first, and it was a serial, if I can call it a submission, but all packaged as one application. And that's, for us, it's a commitment to put heritage and culture at the core of this fight. Last but not least, the world is discussing sea level rise. France and Costa Rica were on the forefront during the Oshim conference to make sure that no one forgets the issue of sea level rise. At the UN, we had the first summit on sea level rise. Trust me, after 25 years at the UN, this was one of the fastest processes. It always takes 10 years to build anything in our home and our house. But most importantly, we already have a rendezvous. Next year, we are meeting in September, and this time to set the tone for our agenda. So see how things have evolved very fast. And in between, we have the BBNG, we have the fishery agreement, We have the entry on force of many of our commitments. So I am celebrating our shared success, our commitment, our champions who are sitting here with us today. But most importantly, I'm celebrating the atoll countries of the Pacific. And now the RNI is going global beyond the atolls, and it's to support all the small island developing states and low-lying territories. On this note, I would like to invite our champions to share with us brief remarks. What is that feeling of taking a pause and just sensing that we have done something right in a troubled world, in an unraveling multilateralism, and that there is hope to move forward with a sense of conviction, with the sense of purpose, and with the sense of empathy. And on this note, it is my pleasure to invite Her Excellency Agnès Pannier-Runacher, Minister for Ecological Transition, Biodiversity, Forests, the Sea, and Fisheries of France. And a congratulations again to France for BBNG. Félicitations, Madame la Ministre.
So, dear friends, thank you for sharing your support for the results of the UNOC 3, the United Nations Ocean Conference, and I believe that yes, we have done a good job, very good job in Nice in June with BBNG moving forward with the first WTO Fish One agreement, and of course with this global coalition for ocean rise and coastal resilience that I will quote in my remarks. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank all organizers and the Global Center for Climate Mobility for this important event. The Rising Nations initiative represents a vital platform for us to come together, strengthen cooperation, and accelerate action in addressing the critical challenges various countries already face. Sea level rise is not a distant or theoretical threat. It is an urgent existential reality for many communities, and even more the small islands, developing states, and low-lying coastal states. Following the 2024 UN Summit on Sea Level Rise, the Rising Nations Initiative launched a global program based on pilot experience. This global program sets a clear international framework. France is fully committed to act and build upon these shared objectives to protect the environment and state continuity, to preserve cultures, to support community adaptation, and, if needed, to provide safe relocation options. That's why French President Emmanuel Macron launched the Global Coalition for Ocean Rise and Coastal Resilience during the Island Summit at the 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice last June. This initiative stands out as a major effort to mobilize expertise, financing, and political will to support vulnerable coastal and island communities. This coalition aims to foster international solidarity, enhance capacity, and implement tangible projects to protect people and ecosystems from the devastating effects of climate change and rising seas. Besides, in July 2025, France revised its Indo-Pacific strategy to align it closely with UNOC 3 efforts. This strategy places a strong focus on climate adaptation, including sea level rise, resilience building, and close solidarity with the Indo-Pacific small island developing states. This strategy reflects a comprehensive approach combining diplomatic engagement and direct support for sustainable development projects. It aims at building adaptive capacities of these countries and their communities so that they can better respond to climate challenges while safeguarding their cultural heritage and way of life. France also supports a wide range of regional initiatives. For example, the Pacific Regional Environment Program, such as the Kiwa Initiative, illustrates our commitment for locally driven solutions empowering island communities in the Pacific region. This focus on ecosystem-based adaptation, improving disaster risk management, and strengthening resilience through innovative, appropriate approaches. It is key to emphasize that the Global Coalition for Coastal Resilience, the revised French Indo-Pacific strategy, the PREP regional programs and complementary and mutually reinforcing. Together, they create a comprehensive and multi-layered framework that supports and amplifies the goal of the Rising Nations Initiative, maximizing impact and solidarity. Today, I'm honored and happy to announce that France is formally joining the Rising Nations Initiative. This new step marks our continuous and increasing collective effort to amplify the voice of SEEDS and low-lying coastal states at the international level. Our coordinated action is absolutely essential for the future and resilience of island states and their people. France reaffirms its full commitment and solidarity to contribute actively to global efforts and to bring concrete solutions to sea level rise situation. As entire nations face existential threats, we must stand together. It is more than a moral obligation. It is a profound test of our humanity. We will meet again in a few weeks in Belen for COP30. These issues are crucial and must be high on the political agendas. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And we are very grateful for French leadership throughout the last many years in pressing forward the ocean and the sea level rise issue on behalf of the 1 billion. On this note, I would like to invite my friend and complice, His Excellency Maina Taya, Minister of Home Affairs, Climate Change and Environment of Tuvalu. Minister Maina, the floor is yours.
Thank you indeed, Professor Kamau, for the opportunity given to me to say a few remarks. And I pledge your indulgence to bear with me. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, friends of Tuvalu, today I speak with gratitude and pride. With RNI support, Tuvalu has just submitted a UNESCO bid to be recognized, our entire nation, with the 8 atolls as a universal world heritage. This was more than just a submission. It was the voice of a small nation declaring to the world that we are still here, and our culture and our people, our country must endure. The best technical experts and institutions were assembled by the RNI to support our nation's effort. Recognition will not hold the tide, but it galvanized the world to act and support us in safeguarding our culture and heritage. UNESCO submission is just one of the many projects that Tuvalu is working closely with RNI and helped to deliver throughout the past 3 years. The RNI advocacy effort led to the first convening of leaders' breakfast on addressing the existential threat posed by sea level rise. It led to the launch of the Coalition for Addressing Sea Level Rise and its Existential Threat, the CSET, co-chaired by Tuvalu and Germany and championed by 10 like-minded countries. The CSET has been enabled by the RNI and played a key role in advancing the UN General Assembly processes that led to the first ever UN Sea Level Rise Summit during last year's high-level week. The RNI enabled CSET's effort all along the way. The RNI rehabilitated the Tuvalu Maritime Training Institute that was licensed by IMO to train and certify our youth to gain and also to join the global maritime industry, but had been in this repair due to climate impact. A quick impact grant that the RNI enabled the Tuvalu Maritime Institute to repair its facilities that teach life-saving skills in 12 months. The success of this pilot grant project inspired the launch of Communities Climate Adaptation Facility, or CCAF, last September, which is now providing rapid response adaptation grants directly to communities at the front line of the climate crisis. The RNI knowledge and science partners are bridging cutting-edge technology and technological expertise to complement our traditional knowledge and our deep local understanding. ADMO built and deliver an AI ultra-precise weather forecast, and grateful to see my friend who is here with us today. That forecast and early warning system that has gone operational for my Tuvalu Meteorological Service last week. UNCDF has built a prototype sea level rise micro-insurance product that is affordable and protects our frontline communities against high tides. NASA has built a digital portal for sea level rise impact assessment and has produced educational backpacks that our students can be used to assess the impact of sea level rise. The RNI Heritage Project is delivering a digital repository that will enable our communities to safeguard their living culture and heritage that dates hundreds of years. Our special thanks goes to the German Federal Foreign Office and the German Archaeological Institute for funding and providing technical assistance to this project. The RNI is currently building a digital governance platform that can continuously deliver public services and regardless of climate impact. We are building this platform to be modular so that it can be brought to operationalization as soon as possible around core services, while other services are added later. As mobility intensifies, the Tuvalu Digital Governance Platform will serve Tuvalu at home and abroad. The RNI is a global partnership that is growing. We welcome new solution partners like the MIT that is presenting its wave attenuation technology that has been tested in the Maldives to protect our coast from erosion and even extend the coastline. The RNI has already transformed ambitions into action, turning the ideas into tangible support to communities on the front lines. But this is only the beginning. As RNIs grow into global platform, I am confident it will unite knowledge, innovation, and solidarity to safeguard the homes, the livelihoods, and culture of small island states, and of course, low-lying coastal states. With those few remarks, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Maina. I have the pleasure to introduce our Caribbean champion, Her Excellency Joëlle Clark, Minister for Sustainable Development, Environment and Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment of St. Kitts and Nevis. Joëlle.
Greetings, everyone. I feel by now we're all friends and I could just move straight into my very brief comments. Do you feel the same? Yes. Because we're all here committed to protecting our islands, protecting our futures, and protecting our livelihoods. Whether it's the Pacific, the Caribbean, Africa, France, we're committed, and that makes me feel like I'm in community. Excellencies, colleagues, again, good day. This morning, our Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew, reminded us in this very room that sea level rise and climate change continues to be burdens to our small island developing states and our economies, especially in the area of tourism and agriculture. And while the Caribbean faces the world's highest disaster displacement risk, we are not alone in this experience. We have our colleagues and brothers and sisters in the Pacific with similar experiences. We can't wait for the next storm. We can't wait for the next rising tide. We must work together for our collective future. Delivering on our shared vision means we must commit to enacting national measures and global partnerships. And that's why we must raise climate risk awareness, adapt housing and land use planning, and support vulnerable livelihoods and economic sectors in response to rising seas. This is why the government of St. Kitts and Nevis has partnered with the Global Center for Climate Mobility to develop a national climate mobility blueprint for action under the Greater Caribbean Climate Mobility Initiative. To complement our national efforts with locally led action, we have been closely engaged with the GCCM on our first pilot countries in the Communities Climate Adaptation Project facility, which I really look forward to sharing with you later this evening. The CCAF's rapid response grants are directly provided to communities to ensure that they too can design and implement their own adaptation projects in response to rising sea levels. And I'm happy to say that we have seen some projects from community groups which are so connected to their realities, so responsive, and really reminds us that we cannot do this alone, not as government, not as global partners, not as communities. Equally, St. Kitts and Nevis welcomes the Rising Nations Initiative enabled by GCCM, and we're happy to announce that we are soon to be official members. I take this opportunity to express our appreciation for the government of Germany's pledge to support this initiative and for their direct support to the plight of SIDS. On the advocacy side, St. Kitts and Nevis commends the tremendous efforts and success of the Coalition for Addressing Sea Level Rise and Its Existential Threats, CSET, and express our keen interest in joining other champions of this initiative to support vulnerable coastal communities who feel the brunt of the climate crisis. I know that these projects, once expanded to support all SIDS, all developing islands, all coastal cities, will have the extensive positive impact and will be a critical measure of support. We're ready to lean forward in this initiative to advance global partnerships, and we acknowledge that we could never do this without the work and partnership of GCCM and, of course, the leadership of our Pacific brothers and sisters. We do look forward to the UN Sea Level Rise Summit in September. We expect great things. Excellencies, colleagues, climate mobility, rising sea levels, it may be daunting, but I know that with partnership from GCCM and the RNI initiative and the execution of our efforts in CCAF, we are moving in the right direction to secure positive adaptation journeys. Thank you so much.
It is for me always an emotional moment when I see communities across the globe, whether they're Caribbean, Pacific, Asia, or Africa, coming together and understanding each other, and as such, be a force of proposition and a force of partnership. So congratulations, Minister. On this note, I would like to invite my good friend, His Excellency Gustave Aitaro, State Secretary of Palau. Minister. Prime Minister, how are you?
Good to see you. Excuse me while I take out my 5-page statement. Here it is. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is really an honor for me. It's always my honor and pleasure to participate with my colleagues and partners of the GCCM. It's it's always, what do you call this, reinvigorating when you have partners who are there, who understand the challenges and understand what we need. The approach that they have right now really is complementary to our culture, is community driven. Community ownership with only the support of the national government and the state governments. But I'm here today to really congratulate Tuvalu, GCCM, and all my colleagues, partners for, this RNI seems like a very short and simple acronym, but it really means the existence of all of us. The Republic of Palau, we commend the tremendous success of the Rising Nations Initiative in supporting Pacific Atoll countries. Its advocacy, efforts, and diligence created the Coalition for Addressing Sea Level Rise and its existential threats, the CSET, which Palau is one of the 12 champion countries. We've always, as soon as Tuvalu became the pilot and submitted their success to UNESCO, also gave us a beacon of hope that maybe some of our islands can follow the same path. As a cross-regional coalition, the CSET plays a key role in building global consensus, as demonstrated in its contribution in the General Assembly process that led to the first ever Sea Level Rise Summit last September. This paves the way for the next UN General Assembly session, which must adopt an ambitious declaration that meets the urgent needs and expectations of Palau and other SIDS. The RNI has also delivered, as evident by my distinguished colleague's statement, concrete support to Tuvalu as the first pilot country in the main pillars of action that were identified in last year's UN Sea Level Rise. Palau welcomed the opportunity to join fellow Pacific Island countries in endorsing the RNI and recommending the wider implementation in the Pacific during the 52nd Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting in Rarotonga, Cook Islands. We welcome the launch of the global program of the RNI, but it would be remiss to also recognize the support of the government of Germany, partners. People say donors, but for us in the Pacific, they're partners. Partners who care, partners who understand the challenges that small island countries face. And not only the governments of Germany or France, but also foundations like the Robert Bosch Stiftung Foundation and other colleagues and other partners who see the challenges that small island developing states face. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to really convey the government of Palau's sincerest appreciation and looking forward to having more engagements with the GCCF. It is one of the, if not, it was just last year we discussed all these initiatives, Dr. Kamal. This year there's been production. There's an evidence that there are partners who really care and really are concerned about the very existence of our people. Like everybody has been mentioning, climate change is not just a policy anymore. It's a threat to all of us. Secretary General Guterres' statement in Tonga for the Pacific Island Forum, his statement was, if you save the Pacific, you save the world. We are the threshold of the existence of everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Gustav. And now I have the pleasure to introduce a champion that has been along with us and has supported this effort, both from the sideline but within the room, and we look forward to have even closer. And on this note, I invite Her Excellency Baiva Braze, Minister of Environment of the Republic, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Latvia. Minister, I hope I pronounced correctly the name.
I was more worried that you suddenly changed my portfolio. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, I would like to thank the organizers of the Global Center for Climate Mobility for the invitation and also for gathering us here. And I believe that Rising Nations Initiative is an important and necessary tool to promote and share our global efforts in addressing existential threats posed by the sea level rise. Small island developing states, SIDS, and low-lying coastal states are leaders in the fight against climate change, and no one has to be convinced of their specific vulnerabilities. So Latvia is closely involved on keeping this issue on the international agenda and looking at ways how we can support the ones that are in the front line and suffer the most. One of such ways we have chosen is through the support for legal judicial action. So Latvia is engaged in both advisory opinions on climate change before ITLOS and ICJ, and also in this regard we welcome the recent advisory opinion delivered by the International Court of Justice, especially its conclusion on continuity of statehood. We also welcome the final report of the ILC, International Law Commission, study group on the sea level rise, adopted by the International Law Commission, and that is chaired by our professor Mārtiņš Paparinskis from Latvia. Having been elected to the UN Security Council and preparing to take our seat from 1st January next year, we are grateful for the trust placed in us by the UN member states. And we strongly believe that effects of climate change do pose a risk for global peace and security, and the Security Council should look at it. So we will continue to prioritize this issue in the context of international law in our foreign policy, but also international legal work. We are among the first 60 countries that ratified the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, or BBJN agreement, and we are looking forward to its entry into force in January 26. We stand ready to offer Latvia's expertise to help accelerate a more inclusive and digitally enabled climate action. For example, on the use of smart technologies for management of natural resources, sustainable, secure use of seas and oceans do require better digital and innovative solutions in our view. One of the main pillars of Rising Nations Initiative is livelihoods, culture, and heritage. In this context, we are eager to share our experience in developing language technologies which promote equality and digital viability of smaller languages and cultures in global era, and also practices of enabling digitization of cultural heritage on nationwide level. Through our activities in UNESCO, we have supported SIDS in enhancing their education systems through digital platforms, and Latvian companies provide small density languages with translation services. Dear colleagues, it's my pleasure to be here among so many like-minded partners and hear that efforts, ideas, and partnerships to tackle threats posed by sea level rise are relevant to all of us, wherever we live, wherever we come from. So Latvia will continue to be a strong advocate for swift and concrete action to address the impact of the climate change, and we stand ready to support the most vulnerable. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and all of us will look forward at the RNI to working closely with you on taking forward what you have already achieved locally and nationally, and to have others very much enjoy that support. On this note, it is my pleasure to invite a good friend, a close friend, a champion of the small island developed states, but also a champion on addressing sea level rise and the preserving the ocean, His Excellency Tariq Ibrahim, Minister of Tourism, Environment of the Republic of the Maldives. For those who don't know history, it all started at one point in the Maldives, and we're back to have the Maldives with us. We're very happy to have you with us, Minister.
Excellencies, friends, a very good afternoon to you all. For many of us in this room, climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present reality. Maldives, like other low-lying nations, is already experiencing its devastating consequences. Strong storms, unpredictable rainfall, and rising seas are disrupting our economies, damaging infrastructure, and eroding ecosystems. Our islands are dependent on our coral reefs. Our islands are among the most vulnerable to sea level rise. With over 80% of our land less than 1 meter above sea level, even a modest rise in sea level could submerge large parts of our country. Already over 60% of our inhabited islands face severe beach erosion, threatening both biodiversity and human settlement. Yet, we are determined to turn these challenges into opportunities. Through strong bilateral and multilateral partnerships, we are working to transform vulnerabilities into resilience. A clear example is Hulumale, a climate-resilient island built 1.8 meters above sea level to withstand further impacts. While expensive, these investments have proven essential to protect our communities. We also need to recognize that land loss is not just about territory. It's about culture, heritage, and identity. Our language, tradition, and ancestral ties are inseparable to our lands and islands. As the seas rise, so does the risk of losing who we are. For us and for other small island development states, the threat of sea level rise is already an issue of loss and damage. It undermines development, livelihoods, and the environment. Because of this, we stand in solidarity with fellow low-lying nations on the front lines of this crisis. That is why the Maldives is eager to join the Rising Nation Initiative and the Coalition on Sea Level Rise. Indeed, international cooperation driven by national priorities and solutions is essential to safeguard our people, our culture, and our future. On the statehood, continuity, and rights pillar of the RNI, the Maldives looks forward to working alongside with other RNI champions on the proposals of an ambitious UN General Assembly Declaration on Sea Level Rise in 2026. We further welcome initiatives such as the RNI's Heritage Program. We also see the RNI Global Program as a vital platform for sharing our experience and contribute to collective adaptation efforts. I am pleased to see the MIT Self-Assembly Lab represent on today's panel. Their technical expertise in coastal regeneration has already yielded promising results. Maldives is proud to be the first pilot country for this work. Just last month, the Maldives Special Envoy for Climate Change personally visited the site to witness the progress made. The knowledge and technology behind this initiative will undoubtedly prove invaluable for other low-lying coastal states. Looking ahead, we are committed to build partnerships, advancing knowledge, and driving community-led adaptation so that our people's identity, dignity, and development remain secure in the years to come. Excellencies, we are not only preparing to adapt, we are preparing to lead. Together, let us build a future where no island is left behind and no voices goes unheard. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Tariq Ibrahim. And on this note, it is my pleasure to introduce our African champion, His Excellency Gilberto Silva, Minister of Agriculture and Environment of Cabo Verde. Minister.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank you for the floor and for the opportunity to attend this high-level reception. I would like to congratulate the GCCM for the initiative. Cabo Verde, as a small island, developing state and archipelago, located in the middle of Atlantic Ocean and in the extension of Sahel region, face this big challenge to face the rising ocean level and its consequence. So we have all reasons to support the Rising Nation initiative. Let's say that climate factors and change are on the origin of the mobility of our population in the islands, between islands, and also the migration abroad during centuries, mainly during the last decades as well. Sea rise and the coastal erosion are a big problem in our country, and is in the origin of salt intrusion and contamination of our underground water. It is real. We have agricultural lands, farms disappearing in the coastal areas because of the coastal erosion due to this big environmental problem. So the cooperation and multilateralism are the only way to address well this global problem, and it is absolutely necessary to help us to adapt and to be more resilient to these effects. We think that we have no other way, no plan B to pursue in our policies. So we are committed to support this partnership and to cooperate with everybody who faces this challenge and who want to help us to face this big environmental problem. So we are ready also to establish with the GCCM a partnership and with all other stakeholders in this issue. So many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister, and I cannot miss the opportunity to acknowledge the leadership of President Jose Maria Pereira on this issue, as he was one of the first co-hosts of the summit or the Leaders' Breakfast on Sea Level Rise and its existence threats, and bringing a perspective that is very important, very unique, and a champion of culture and heritage, as you know, part of the efforts of UNESCO. My dear friends and dear colleagues, as you can notice and see, we are forging and pressing forward a coalition of champions across regions, across cultures, across ideologies, but most importantly, one for people and planet. And on this note, I am very happy and to introduce His Excellency Will Narkives, Ambassador for Climate Change of Australia. Australia has been a champion and leader in showing us the path forward on how to address issues of the existential threats of sea level rise. The Filapile Unity Treaty is now being studied, is being taught in classrooms, and it's actually show us what is possible. And on this note, I invite Will to join us and to speak of Australia's leadership and what we can expect more. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much, Kamal, for that really kind introduction. Co-hosts, ministers, ambassadors, colleagues, it really is an honor to be here today to provide some reflections on this important issue of sea level rise. And thanks very much to GCCM for the opportunity. I've listened really carefully to the perspectives of the representatives of small island developing states and the champions here this morning and learned a lot. And I think they have really reinforced that sea level rise is the lived experience of many communities worldwide. Australia, of course, isn't immune to this. We recently released, just a couple of weeks ago, our first climate risk assessment. And that said that rising sea levels could put 1.5 million Australians living in coastal areas at risk by 2050. So I think this is an issue that affects many of us. But nowhere is it more visible or urgent than for small island developing states like our Pacific Island partners. Recently, the UN Secretary General described the Pacific Islands as ground zero for the impacts of climate change. A region with profound connection to land, sea, and sky, where ocean is a vital food source, a highway for trade and for travel, and an essential element of cultural identity. The same is true, and I think we've heard some of this throughout the course of the discussions today. The same is true for all small island states the world over. The paradox is that these small island developing states have contributed the least to the climate crisis, yet they're on the front lines of its damaging impacts. Australia recognises that the really profound threat and impact of sea level rise on low-lying states requires bold and ambitious climate action. That's why we're backing Pacific-led solutions by investing $100 million in the Pacific Resilience Facility, a Pacific-led and Pacific-owned facility to deliver climate finance to communities. We really encourage other nations to pledge contributions to the PRF. Colleagues, Australia's nationally determined contribution, announced this week, undertakes to reduce our emissions by 62 to 70% over 2005 levels by 2035. This is an ambitious and achievable target. It's underpinned by comprehensive plans. It'll require us to reduce emissions over the next 10 years by more than we've reduced emissions over the last 20 years. But to meet the Paris Agreement goals, we need the largest economies, both advanced and developing, to rapidly decline their emissions. 9 members of the G20, collectively responsible for about half the world's emissions, are still increasing emissions. Colleagues, Australia is proud to have contributed to and endorsed the 2021 and 2023 Pacific Islands Forum Leaders' Declarations on climate change-related sea level rise in the context of the preservation of maritime zones, the continuity of statehood, and the protection of persons under international law. We encourage more states to support these declarations. Australia continues to partner with the Pacific and invest in improved weather forecasting and early warning systems. And Minister Maina, it was really inspiring to hear what your country is doing with supportive partners and in cooperation with partners in that regard. Stronger food and water security, climate resilient infrastructure, and mobilising climate finance. Australia is also learning from generations of traditional knowledge and wisdom of caring for land and sea, both in Australia and in Pacific Island countries. All to support longer-term adaptation to address the impacts of sea level rise on Pacific peoples. Colleagues, most of you will know that Australia is bidding to host COP31 in partnership with the Pacific as a Pacific COP. One of our key goals is to draw the attention of the world to the impacts of climate change on states who are really at the front line of the climate crisis. We're very grateful to Pacific Island countries for your support, including Palau's President Whips. I was just in the General Assembly chamber and listening to his comments in the GA Hall, in which he vocalized very strong support for a Pacific COP next year. Minister Maina, I'd like to recognize Tuvalu's really strong leadership and tireless work as one of the co-hosts of this meeting. As our chair mentioned, the groundbreaking Australia-Tuvalu Felipili Union provides Tuvaluans with a pathway to preserve their culture and heritage wherever they are. It includes recognition of Tuvalu's continuing statehood and sovereignty, and it's the first legally binding treaty of its kind. The Felipili Mobility Pathway provides Tuvaluans the opportunity to live, study and work in Australia. But as your Prime Minister has said, this isn't about one-way traffic. We want Tuvaluans to benefit from this flexible pathway and take new qualifications, skills and experience back home to benefit their communities. Because ensuring people have the choice to stay with safety and with pride, to live and thrive in their home, is at the heart of our partnership. Again, I deeply appreciate this opportunity to engage on this fundamentally important topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. It is much valued, as I mentioned. We invite all other champions to follow suit, particularly on the acknowledgement and the recognition what has now the court set as a strong advice or the tone to move forward when it comes to defining international law on statehood, sovereignty, maritime zones, and to follow the Pacific to that end and to that regard. On this note, I would like to invite our last keynote speaker, representing one of the champion countries or key champion countries that has been along with us in the RNI since its first day. And on this note, I invite Gerard Schlaudroff, the Director for International Climate Finance at the German Federal Foreign Office. Gerard, voilà.
I hesitate to take the floor. I think that we have been abusing the panelists quite a bit, so I try to be brief. And UNGA to me seems is like a place that has hundreds of parallel worlds, you know, and often they don't interact with each other and they don't intersect. You know, I'm coming from the G20 foreign ministers meeting, and you talk about Gaza, you talk about Ukraine, about the disruption of international trade and what have you. Barely anyone mentioning climate, despite the G20 representing 80% of global emissions. But then I go to the West and people talk about COP30, yeah. And here in these few days here, we have been talking a lot about the ICJ advisory opinion about rising sea levels, and it doesn't feature at the COP30 debate, and here the COP30 doesn't feature. I find that interesting. SIDS have often felt that their voice is not being heard enough at COPs, both outside the G77 and also sometimes inside the G77. At the same time, often when SIDS and the Europeans reached across the aisle, progress was possible at COPs. But now, what I take away from these events here, I think we had this great breakfast this morning with a very diverse group of ministers and prime ministers from countries that are affected by sea level rise, and it was a totally unideological, open exchange of views that I think we can build on. And the RNI has achieved a lot in a very short period of time. It has shown that SIDS have agency if they work on a topic like sea level rise, and I think it will have political implications. The ICG advisory opinion has vindicated and cemented the view that statehood cannot be put in question by sea level rise. That's very important and one of the main pillars of RNI, and we will be working on all of them. Germany is honored and humbled by the trust SIDS have placed in us to work with them on this. I want to thank Kamal and the GCCM for the tremendous work they have been doing. Looking forward to be working with you again. I don't mean to criticize the Secretary General, but I have come not to look at the SIDS as the ground zero, because it kind of suggests rubble and gray, and I have come to learn that the SIDS are actually a very vibrant, diverse community of people. So I would look at the SIDS more like the bird in the coal mine, perhaps. And this is an exciting journey. We will be with you. Thank you.
Dear friends, as we celebrate the SIDS as well as low-lying countries and territories, I would like to take advantage of the presence of some of our partners with whom in the RNI we tried to bring tangible impact to the sense of partnership that we were building together as a pilot with Tuvalu. And I have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Pradeep Kurukulasuraya, Executive Secretary of the UN Capital Development Fund, as well as Mr. Alex Levy, CEO and co-founder of Atmo, ultra-precise AI weather forecast and early warning systems, and Mr. Skylar Tibbets, who is Professor of Design Research at MIT. I would be very grateful if you could take a couple of minutes and just introduce what we were able to build together in support of Tuvalu and what we're building on that specific pilot to take forward to the world and to the SIDS. And as you all know, we sat at the table and we listened. And the listening was already half of the answer, because we knew what was needed, what was requested. And as we all work towards bringing all these solutions, the RNI is a coalition of advocacy, of solution, of cooperation. We are very, very glad to have you with us. And I would like to give the floor to Pradeep first. Pradeep, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Excellencies. Thank you, Excellencies, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've been reflecting a lot on what we heard from all the ministers, and also the eye-catching boards on the back of the room, which really is ultimately about looking at this as an opportunity for change. And what I'm encouraged about through the efforts that, in countries like Tuvalu, PNG, and many other places around the world, is that when we put our minds together, we do find innovative solutions. But those solutions need a little bit of support, particularly in those contexts. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, we know for the last so many years, there's been a significant amount of public money that has been dedicated to address many of the challenges that we've heard about. But we also know that the existing systems of the flow of public finance isn't getting to where it needs to go as fast as we need it, nor is it, for that matter, at the scale at which we need. And given the current context of ODA, it's also unreasonable to expect that that's going to continue in any meaningful way. So we have to find other solutions. And of course, that solution must involve, in many ways, the private sector. But the issue we face with that solution is that the economic conditions in which we are wanting to operate aren't really conducive for private finance to flow, not without a little bit of help and in the right way. So whether you're talking about the renewable energy in the islands, in the Maldives, which can help them get off diesel and power, outer islands, whether you're talking about, insurance in the Pacific, which doesn't, result in premiums going up and the policyholder being disadvantaged. We have to find solutions that provide the right type of de-risking. And that's something that UN Capital Development Fund is very much focused on, because as the only UN entity that can use grant money to deploy guarantees to provide liquidity, it allows risks that prevail in many of these countries to be addressed in a way that the traditional development finance architecture cannot. Simply because the existing development finance architecture, much of it is itself credit rated, it is borrowing from capital markets, and the amount of risk absorption that they can take on is limited. They do their best by blending on their balance sheets, but that blending only allows them to get to a certain level of risk profile, not what is actually the case in many of these contexts. And that's where we seek to add value. Now, the Tuvalu insurance product is a wonderful example where we know it works. We know it has a lot of impact. It's a model that needs to be scaled to other parts of the world. And the partnership we now have with Lloyds and Aon is aimed at doing exactly that. But it needs de-risking capital. It needs guarantees to incentivize investors to come in. It needs guarantees to ensure that, when and if an event occurs, that the increased premium doesn't get passed on to the client base. But that type of, grant resource to access, we have to find ways to make that flow faster. And if we do that, then there are solutions. Same for renewable energy. In the Maldives, you can get a lot of those islands off diesel and provide them with renewable energy. But to get the investors to go into those types of ecosystems requires de-risking. And it's not a lot of money that we're talking about. You can unlock, 10x, 20x with a little bit of grant funding that can be used as a guarantee. But we are not bringing these pieces of the solution together yet. This is something that UNCDF is very much focused on, and we hope that some of the conversations we've started with our partners, with you, Kamal, and others, that we would be able to head in that direction very soon. That will be an additive contribution to the efforts that countries are now leading the charge on, but which really they could use some of this support to get to that next level of resilience. Okay.
Thank you very much for your inputs, Pradeep. And on this note, I would like to invite Alex to share with us what we have been putting together. As you noticed, Minister Maina was quite happy that what was discussed and agreed we have developed on, and we have delivered. Thank you, Alex.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, thank you so much. I appreciated His Excellency, the German representative, making a joke that we were all suffering up here listening to these speeches, but I think it was really our pleasure. It's an incredibly inspiring group at this meeting, and so great credit, I think, goes to GCCM, RNI, and of course the entire team here for putting this together. It's extraordinary, really, what you've accomplished. Really. I believe I may have a few slides. I'm not sure if those are available. If so, I'd be happy to show some visual aids.
Who controls the screen?
Excellent.
Voila.
Who's the person? Can someone put their hand up, whoever's doing it, or do I just say next slide?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's on.
Okay.
You
wonderful.
want to?
Oh, there's a clicker.
Yes.
Oh, well,
you see?
Should I help myself to it?
I think, voila.
Oh, fantastic.
The clicker is right here.
Oh, great.
You want to get closer?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
The private sector have always a better way of doing business than the technocrats.
All right, we'll have a brief interlude for some fun graphics. So we've just completed, as you heard from Minister Maina. Thank you so much for your remarks. the first AI-based weather early warning system within the RNI. This is an idea that we've pursued for some time. I think probably coming up on about 1.5 to 2 years, going back quite some ways, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity. So let me give you some previous context of other places this has been applied, and then showing how it's applied to Tuvalu. So we're joining you from San Francisco. I lead a company called Atmo, which is a team of pioneers in AI for atmospheric science. But before this initiative, we had been applying it in very different areas. We'd been applying it in the context of militaries, in the context of large enterprises, and we had never applied it in such a philanthropic or pro-social context, I think, as RNI. As compared to the classical ways of doing meteorology, we've recently invented AI-based methods which had a number of improvements. The classic ways of doing things, as many of you may know, involve supercomputers which costs oftentimes billions or even tens of billions of dollars to operate, which means that classically forecasting has been accessible only to a coalition of very, very rich countries which have produced global forecasts available to everyone else. But under the new AI systems that are available for weather forecasting, we had enormous improvements that we could apply here in the context of Tuvalu. As compared to the classic way of doing things, the new systems are much faster. They can update in every few seconds as opposed to every 6 hours. They can be much more accurate through self-tuning and self-training through that AI process, 20 to 40% more accurate, which is equivalent to many prior years of progress. And you can take their speed and apply that to increase the resolution. And this is really critical in the context of Tuvalu, where detail, as compared to these global forecasts, was really important. Before this project, Atmo was using this, as I mentioned, in a series of completely different applications. So for example, we were running most of the space launch forecasting systems in America, so at Cape Canaveral, at Vandenberg, and elsewhere, making very, very detailed weather forecasts like the ones that you see here to provide early warnings. But in the case of rocket launches, what is the window when you're going to be able to launch or not launch? You can start to see the applications, of course, in Tuvalu. We've also applied this to some very, very large countries. Most recently, we built the new National Weather Service of the Philippines, which has just completed its first year in operation as the highest performing forecast in the Southeast Asia region. And so in this case, a 2-kilometer, 14-day model covering this country. And so the performance there in predicting typhoons was very, very excellent. In fact, the highest performing model in the last year. Okay, so those are some of the places that we applied it in the context of space launch and militaries and other countries. Now, what we wanted to do is to bring this to Tuvalu. And so why do we want to do this? Well, in particular, because Tuvalu is in a position where it's receiving very general forecasts, which are produced globally, very distantly from the country, and which are not tuned or trained to reflect the conditions on the ground in that exact part of the Pacific, meaning that the accuracy is lower and the detail is lower than we would want. So our vision here was to dramatically increase the resolution. So on the left, you can see an image of the current global forecast prior to this project, and you can see this is the coverage of essentially most of the ocean area of the country, a 28-kilometer resolution, meaning that each one of these squares is 28 kilometers. What if we could increase that by over 100 times? So now on the right, you see Funafuti. And there, now we have an equal number of pixels covering just the one island as opposed to the entire territory. So that then allows you to understand at a much greater level of detail what the impacts will be, and really down to the portions of the islands. And so this is an unprecedented capability. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so to give you just a sense, this is how it looked in another context, the increase of resolution here. This is a typhoon in Asia. On the left, you had, I guess, again, the prior resolution. On the right, you had what was done. And this is exactly what we wanted to introduce to this region. So ultimately, the idea was to nest into a larger domain, this extremely detailed region here, and do one other thing, which was to incorporate all of the local sensing information. Now, the Tuvalu Meteorological Service has been building out a variety of sensors that cover this area, and historical data covering this area, which can be used to improve the forecast further by actually incorporating it into the AI system. So that's sort of an overall picture of how that looks. Now, the great news, which you heard in His Excellency's remarks, is that this system, now after several months of development, has gone live just last week. And so we're very, very pleased that it's working. And to give you a sense of what this looks like, this is a real image. This is available at tuvalu.atmo.ai. And as you can see here, this is showing a wind map. And you can just visually see that the level of detail is much, much higher. To remind you, this entire area in the past might have only been a 10 by 10 grid, and now we're getting down to individual sides of individual islands throughout the territory. So as the country may unfortunately experience adverse events, at least the prediction of those events will be much improved. And we've done the same, of course, for other factors like precipitation, which is very critical here. This is the rain map. To conclude, at ATMO, we were challenged by RNI to take what we had done in the context of the military and space launch and enterprises and apply it here in Tuvalu. And we've been very pleased to work together as partners in doing this. And we're very pleased that it is now live and available to the country and will be going forward. And I hope for many other nations following this example. So thank you.
Thank you.
As they say, we have proof of concept that what NASA can afford, we can take it to small island development states. And we hope, Alex, to work with you and ATMO to take this to all 38 small island development states, but also to large cities on low-lying grounds, as they need such information, such data, such early warning in order to protect and preserve. The response, it's another conversation, but at least to be aware and to be well informed. On this note, and I know particularly that Pradeep has to leave us urgently to another meeting, I ask Skylar to just take us through what we are planning together for Tuvalu, please.
And I have slides as well. Can I use that?
Yes, you can use that, and someone has
Here's the slides.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. I'm Skylar Tibbetts. I'm faculty at MIT. I run a research lab called the Self-Assembly Lab. Let's see. No. Maybe I have slides. Okay. Maybe I'll have slides. But I'll give you some context before we go. So we've been working for almost a decade in the Maldives. As you heard, we are working on a project called Growing Islands. And the idea is that we want to build with the forces of nature rather than fight them. And we've been working with the Minister of the Environment, with an organization called Envina at MIT and in the Maldives, and building a series of field installations to try to have nature-based solutions. How can we rebuild coastlines naturally rather than trying to fight nature? So originally it was National Geographic, then USAID. Now we're excited about this partnership with GCCM. And really what we've learned from the Maldives, we would like to collaborate with other nations. And so it's super exciting to be here and talk about what we can do together. We all know this problem. The small island states are facing threat of sea level rise, but even more urgently is storm inundation and erosion. And there's really only two things that people talk about. One of them is fighting the force of nature. Let's build walls, let's armor. And the second one is dredging. Neither of these approaches work. Armoring tries to fight nature. It almost never is going to work. Dredging destroys the reef. It's really harmful, and the sand doesn't want to be there, so you have to keep dredging. So we really don't have solutions for erosion, storm inundation, and protecting islands. In the Maldives, they dredge as well. Many islands around the world and coastal regions dredge. They can build an island in several months. But what we became fascinated in is that the same amount of time that it took them to dredge that island, 3 sandbars built themselves. And these are massive amounts of sand. They're over 1 meter above sea level. They emerged on their own. They completely self-organized. No one was pumping these. And so that became the key insight, that this naturally happens. Islands build themselves. The question is, how do they do that? Why did they do that? Could we tap into that natural force, and could we promote that to happen? And our hypothesis is it's the relationship between the bathymetry, the underwater landscape, and the force of the ocean. And so if you can strategically change that by placing submersibles with the right shapes and the right orientations, you can guide sand accumulation into targeted areas. So you could guide the sand back onto the beach. So we study that computationally, we study that through flume experiments, physically in our lab, but most of our work is in the field. And some of this analysis work relating to what you were just talking about has actually led to satellite work, because how do we know where to do an intervention? How do we know where the critical parts are? And we were surprised to realize that no one is actually monitoring the change in these coastlines. There's not like a global weather service that says you've lost this much coast or not. So the first thing we do is we use historic satellite data. These are going all the way back to 2006, and we can monitor how the islands are changing. You can see some that are super dramatic changes, some that are really stable. But then going forward, we can predict from that. So we build a predictive model, and we've built a platform called Littoral right now in the Maldives, but we're interested in expanding that. And we can then see where are the most vulnerable regions, what has eroded in the past, what are we predicting is going to erode in the future, and where should you devote your time and energy? What are the critical areas that we think are going to continue to erode? So effectively, it's health monitoring for coastlines. But once you have this information, what do you do with it? And that's most of our work is field interventions. We've done 10 different ones. It's a little outdated, but 10 different field installations from 20 meters to 90-meter structures, different materials and systems. This one, so this is 90 meters across. These are some of the delegates that came to see this when we first installed it. It's an omnidirectional structure, so no matter what season, monsoons, storms, sand is always going to accumulate in the middle. So this is after 5 months. All the sand in the middle you can see is accumulating. That's just one season. Here you can see the trajectory over the course of those 5 months. So we're basically trying to target the sand accumulation instead of dredging. What if you could just naturally accumulate sand in a very specific place? Now it's ankle deep, so you can walk there. We've gotten over 2 meters of new elevation. So here you can see the bathymetry analysis, and we just were there last month, and it's even more than this, so we haven't updated this yet. So 600 cubic meters of sand accumulation in those 5 months, just from placing something and going home. There's no pumping. It's just totally passive. This one is about fast, low-cost deployable systems. Imagine an island or a coast that had a fleet of these, and they could deploy them. In this case, we made 40 meters in an hour. You could deploy these systems almost like gardening. When a season is changing or you know a storm is coming, the sand can then accumulate back onto the beach, utilizing the force of that storm. And then the last one I'll show you is the most recent one at the JW Marriott, and we built this detached structure. So we dug a hole in the sand, we cast the units directly into the sand, we pulled them out. Every unit is unique, and we made 54 of these structures to make this 50-meter structure. It's effectively a detached breakwater. It has porosity, but it reduces the wave energy to basically rebuild the coastline. But then it becomes a thriving marine habitat. So we were just there last month, and there's thousands of fish. It becomes this totally alive ecosystem of fish. There's tons of coral. It's only been there 6 months, and we have thousands of these natural recruitment. We didn't plant any coral, and it's really thriving. But it also becomes a dive location. So then local guests, community members can benefit. So you see this benefiting the human population, benefiting the marine environment, and benefiting the coastline. So it's not just infrastructure, it's actually helping the ecosystem. But most importantly, in just the 6 months that it's been deployed, we've had 30 meters of new beach. Again, totally passive. There's no pumping or beach land reclamation. This is just passive, that the beach has grown that much. So the vision of our work is today we build walls to fight the ocean, but tomorrow we grow islands with the ocean. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And we are very happy and proud to work with you on deploying our 9th solution under the RNI. We, as mentioned, we have been pushing strongly the advocacy side, the heritage and culture, and working with you. We are pushing the solutions, and we are all very grateful. I would like, I am abusing the patience of all, and I just would like to turn to the audience if there is a quick 1 or 2 questions for our speakers. I see a hand. I don't know if your voice is loud enough, otherwise we get you a microphone. Thank you. Please.
Hi, my name is Bashir with the AOC. And my question is, it's impressive that you use this AI and technology for these solutions, but how do you translate this use and also the use of technology for military purposes? Climate change, the country.
Thank you. Any other question? Fantastic. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to this. So, I share your feeling about it as well. There's a lot of technologies that have a long history of starting with origins in defense funding. So some of the examples are very profound, like the internet, for example, started as the ARPANET in the United States, which was primarily funded through defense funding to originate networking technologies, to make networks resilient in the face of a potential nuclear disaster, actually. It was one of the original motivations. That architecture then was imitated and expanded and became the internet, which of course has done so much to connect humanity. Another maybe more trivial example is the microwave. Believe it or not, the microwave was originally an accidental discovery of radar labs in the United States, when they'd have some radar systems on a table accidentally left running, and one of the engineers found that a chocolate bar carried around in their pocket had suddenly melted. Never mind the fact they were probably microwaving themselves in order to realize this. And so when we started out, we had a general vision at Atmo for using deep learning in meteorology. It wasn't particularly oriented to any industry or any particular user. We've been very fortunate to find that the folks that wanted the most advanced meteorology the soonest were often military aviators, Navy ship captains, and so forth. And you can understand why they would want more precise forecasting, because of the fact that they're moving and responsible for troops and people. And so in the last few years, we've been pleased to have these as partners. Our hope, in essence, is that we can take advantage of the funding which is available from the defense world, which is so plentiful as compared often to philanthropic funding, in order to accelerate the development of the meteorology for vulnerable states. So overall, we think it's to the net positive that we are able to use something that is first used in a defense context, and to allow that, in essence, to subsidize the research and development for the benefit of everybody else. So that's the way that we're approaching it, in essence, to try to imitate the model of the internet or the microwave to do the same for advanced meteorology.
Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated.